Hey, what's up you guys, it's Connor, and today we're going to be doing an individual book review for The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. If you guys don't know, this is a fantasy book that follows a character named Linus Baker. At the beginning of the book, you find out that he is a caseworker for the department in charge of magical youths, and has for quite a long time. He's about 40 years old, and I think he's worked for this company for about 19 of those 40 years, and he's a bit in a rut. He is a very by-the-book person. He follows all of the rules for this department to a T, and doesn't really think about them all that much. He lives a pretty boring life, other than the fact that he has a cat with a huge personality, and the only personalized item he has in his office is a mouse pad, and it says, "Don't you wish you were here?" and it's a picture of an ocean. That's it. This department is in charge of all of the magical youths, and the caseworkers go to these different orphanages that are dedicated to magical youths to make sure that they're up to code and that they're up to the standards that this department has decided on. Linus has suggested that some orphanages close down and some don't, and he doesn't really think about what happens to the children afterward. This department, at the beginning of the book, needs someone that's by the book to go on a classified case to this orphanage that has a lot of dangerous magical youths at it. They pick Linus because he doesn't give them any reason to suspect that he won't give an honest opinion, and so at the beginning of the book, he goes to this orphanage and he finds out that it's a house in the Cerulean Sea. Then he just has to decide the fate of this orphanage and of these children, basically. As usual with my book reviews, I'm going to go through my pros, go through my cons, give you my rating, and be done. Buckle up because I have a lot of pros. My first pro for this book was that I really loved the characters. This book, for me, was all about the characters. I loved Linus. He is such a boring person at the beginning of the book. He's in such a big rut, and he reminds me of the characters from Office Space, if you guys have seen that movie. The characters just live a very boring, gray life. They go to their cubicles and they work on their papers or whatever it is, and then they go home and then they come back and do the same thing over and over and over again. That is Linus Baker. He goes to work, comes home, hangs with his cat, listens to music, goes back to work. I loved seeing him interact with the people at this orphanage. I loved seeing him interact with Arthur Parnassus, who is the caretaker of this orphanage. He is the one that's in charge of all of these different magical youths that are deemed way more dangerous than all of the other magical youths that Linus has seen in the past. At this orphanage, it's not a spoiler because it's in the blurb, but there are 6 children that are here, and they are all different species. There's a female gnome named Talia, who I loved. She is super into gardening, obviously, because garden gnomes, but I really loved how loyal she is, just how she will do anything for the other children or Arthur at this orphanage. I just love how protective she is. I think she's the first child that Linus meets when he gets there. There's also Fee, who's a forest sprite, so she has all of her magical powers. There is Theodore, who is a wyvern. He doesn't speak English. I definitely feel like Theodore represents people that speak other languages or that people refuse to learn that language, like people that have sign language, and how people don't make accommodations for them. And so historically, they've just been written off as not as intelligent as people that can speak English verbally. So I really liked Theodore. He's so sweet. I love that he loves his treasure and everything like that. There's Chauncey, who's the unidentified green blob character, because who knows what he is, but he just wants to be a bellhop, and I loved him. There's Sal, who is a were-Pomeranian, so he turns into a Pomeranian, and he is a lot more reserved than all of the other children because of things that have happened that you find out in the book. Really love Sal. Him and Theodore hang out a lot. And then the last character, who's probably the biggest personality of all of them, is Lucy, who is the Antichrist. I think he's 6, and I just love him so much. I love how he talks. I love how uncomfortable he makes characters on purpose. And so I just was having a blast with all of these different characters and seeing how they all interact with all of the other ones and how much love they have for each other. It's like a very found family heavy story, and I'm here for that. And so my biggest pro for this book is definitely the characters. I loved all of them. If you just want to read a super sweet story about some very nice, lovable characters, this one's great. My next pro is that I really loved this premise. It had so many different vibes of things that I felt were familiar to me. Like I said, the character of Linus and this department and how it's set up really reminded me of Office Space and how boring that is. And then it also kind of reminded me of 1984 because this department, this government agency, has so much power over these children and is oppressive. They completely control these children's lives because they were ripped away from their parents, which has happened historically with minorities and white people. And so you do see that reflected in these children. These children would have completely different lives if they were allowed to stay with family members or stay with people of their own kind. But because they're all put together, they make their own little culture with each other. And I was really enjoying that despite everything that these characters have found each other and love each other. With all of these different children and all of these different powers and everything like that, it definitely reminded me a bit of like a Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children vibe. Not that those two have anything to do with each other, but just that there is a concentration of magical children together. I love it. And this story taken as a whole a little bit reminded me of the premise of Heroes, if you guys have seen that TV show. Basically, there's a government agency that is trying to track down all of these people that have supernatural powers and control them, and that's basically what the department does. My next pro for this book is that I really liked all the messages that it has. It is definitely heavy on the themes of family and of home. What makes up a home? What makes up a family? Through Linus, you explore things like living versus just existing. And through these orphans and through these orphanages in general, you start to explore things like safe places versus isolating people and the effects that social isolation can have instead of just making a safe place for someone where they can be themselves and also interact and break down some of the stereotypes that surround people. Really loved all the messages. A+. My next pro for this book was that I really enjoyed the writing. I actually listened to this as an audiobook and I borrowed it from my library and then picked up a physical copy because I want to reread it soon. So I can't say how the writing reads, but listening to it was very pleasant. I think that whoever did the narration for the audiobook did the dialogue really well. I really enjoyed hearing all of the children talk to each other and just the way that they speak. I just really enjoyed the audiobook and I'm really excited to reread this and physically read it to see if I still really enjoy the writing. And my last pro for this book is that I just really love the happy feeling of this book. It is incredibly sweet, and I think that during this time of social distancing and quarantining and just being by yourself can get you pretty down. This book will make you feel pretty happy because I just feel like all the characters are great and they all love each other and it's just a really good, feel-good book. This isn't a book that's high adventure, this isn't swashbuckling, this isn't got some primordial evil or anything like that. It's a lot more quiet, but I really enjoyed it for that and I loved it. As for cons, I honestly couldn't think of any. I think that my only con is that this is a standalone and I really wished there was more story to it. Like, I really want to find out what happens to the characters after the ending of this book. Not that the ending isn't satisfying, it's just I loved them, so I want to keep reading about them. So much so that I actually built this house in The Sims 4 and made the characters so that I could continue their lives and make them get all the lives that they deserve. So that's how much I enjoyed this book. I built it in The Sims, like completely accurate, like all the rooms and everything like that. I went back and listened to the sections that described the house and where people's rooms were and what the rooms looked like and built it in The Sims. So, you know, I was totally invested in this book to have spent that much time to go back and do that. In the end, I had a ton of pros for this book. Really, really enjoyed it. I had no idea what this book was going to be about when I borrowed it from the library. I just saw that it had a pretty vibrant cover and the premise sounded interesting enough. I am so shocked and pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed this. I gave this book 5 stars. I highly recommend it, and I hope you guys will check it out. Oh, also, there's a gay romance that happens. I totally forgot to address that, but yeah, that's in there too. I also thought that that was really well done. That was another pro. I thought that the romance between Linus and Arthur was slow and made sense and was well done, and I enjoyed watching it unfold because it wasn't like a we meet and we're in love kind of thing. It was a we meet, let's see how you are and what things are like, and then go from there. So I enjoyed it for that. And I also forgot to mention that there's another character named Zoe, who is a island sprite who lives on the island, and I really enjoyed her as well. As I said, I gave this book 5 stars and definitely recommend it. Please go check it out if you would like to. None of that was a spoiler because it's all in the blurb, so check it out. So that's my review on The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. If you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up and comment down below if you've read this book. Did you enjoy it as much as I did? Because I thought it was so sweet and I loved it. If you're interested in reading it now, let me know that as well. Anything else you want me to know, leave it down below and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye. Nook! You want to say bye? Say bye. Nikki, say bye. Good boy.